All right, so we will take breaks throughout the webinar. But if you have a question while Casey is presenting, you can feel free to use the chat function. And there is also a Q&A option on the bottom of the screen that you should see. And as the questions come up, I'll take a look at them, and then Casey will take a couple of breaks, and she'll answer them at that particular moment in time. And we will also have a couple of polls that will come up throughout the webinar as well. And if you could participate in that, that'd be great.
Why don't I start one now? All right, you should see a poll that's entitled Roll Call. Has 2 questions in it. Knock yourselves out and practice answering them. And we'll share the results in a little bit. I'm sure you figured this out already, but you can hear and see us, but we can't hear and see you live at all. And so please do take advantage of the chat function that Larry spoke of to give us input, especially if you're having technical difficulties. You can also use that space, that chat space, to let us know that as well. I'm gonna leave this poll up just a little while longer, but maybe Larry, we can introduce Casey.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Casey, who will be leading our webinar today, is the MBA's Director of Marketing. Her work is focusing on the development and implementing integrated marketing and communication strategies across the MBA's various mission areas, programs, and audiences. Her passion is for storytelling and finding meaningful ways to amplify and share the disciples' stories and how they make an impact across the nation, and also creating communities of compassion and care. Casey's professional experience includes advertising, account management with national brand agencies, developing and marketing, and being engaged in her community. So we look forward to the wisdom that Casey will share with us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone for being here. Glad to be with you. Hoping everyone can hear me okay. Is that all good?
So far, nothing on the chat, but I would share with you all what our first poll results were. Well, not nothing on the chat. Hi, Savasky.
Right, just.
So I thought since we had a couple of people who are new to hearing about MBA, I just give you a little bit of background on who's hosting this webinar. So thank you so much for coming and trusting us, even though you read the title but weren't sure who we were. Thanks for trusting us to join us at this time. The National Benevolent Association is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. And we are the health and social service ministry of that denomination. We are here to help support and encourage health and social service ministry across the life of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And the Incubate Initiative in particular tries to help and encourage and support entrepreneurs who are starting new health and social service ministries from scratch. So we want to offer pieces like this that will help you get your new business, your new social enterprise, your new nonprofit, whatever shape it's taking, your new project and ministry off the ground. So we hope this is helpful to all of you who have decided to join us today. And Casey, do you want me to go ahead and launch the second poll so we can see who's made a communications plan before?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. We have a few folks who can hear and a few who are getting sound cut in and out. So we'll try and speak slowly. All right, the new poll is up. You should see one that says, what's already in place? And there are 2 questions there. Have a ball.
Good. So yes, and while everyone is doing this poll, I'll just say, as Larry mentioned, my background before coming to NBA has been in advertising account management on the corporate side of things, and then in marketing and development and higher ed. So I come with those perspectives that, in many ways are translatable and transferable to the work that we do in the church and nonprofit-based world. But that being said, also, I am not the be-all, end-all expert on marketing. There are a lot of perspectives out there, and I'm learning from all of you as I go, and doing my best to keep up with trends and best practices in an ever-changing communications landscape. So just happy to offer a little bit of my perspectives here, and we'll ask and answer questions and talk as much as we can through the webinar too.
Excellent. Got some good results on this poll, so I'm going to go ahead and post it, Casey, so you can see who you're working with.
Very good. So, yep, definitely we all come at it from different angles and different experiences to offer, which is always a good thing.
Excellent. So I'm going to stop sharing the poll, but also I'm going to turn off my video. But I'll still be here. Larry will still be here. And we'll give Casey a chance to share her wisdom with us.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Let's see how I can best move through my slides. There we go. So Ayana gave a good introduction to National Benevolent Association. We are getting ready to celebrate 130 years of ministry. So you may have already heard that about us. If you're newer to NBA and you stay in touch with us, you'll be hearing more about it as we go on in 2017. But our beginnings are back in 1887 with 6 disciples women who met in the basement of their church to pray about the needs that they saw in their community. Particularly women and children who were in need in St. Louis. And so that is where we got our beginnings. And the needs of the day have changed and evolved, and so has NBA, where now we are working in collaboration and partnership with more than 40 ministries across the US and Canada, across 23 regions of the church, doing health and social service and social justice work. And so part of what we do, a big part of what we do and what I do as Director of Marketing here at NBA is to share that story, the story of NBA, but more importantly, the stories of these ministries, your ministries who are there on the ground in your communities, serving and caring for the least of these. So that's a big job, and those are big stories. And so that's what we're here to talk about, is how we can do that well. So I think we know, some of the reasons why sharing our stories are important. The biggest one that I go back to is, our ministries are doing good work. The needs are great. And there's a lot of work in front of us to do. If no one knows what we're doing, how can they help us? How can they be involved? How can they volunteer? How can they support you with their generosity? And it's a cycle. If they don't know about you and the work, they don't know how to get involved and be supportive. They don't know to tell their friends and family about you and to help spread the word. So it has to start somewhere, and it's important for us to take the time to share those stories out with the world. But of course, that's hard. I think we all have challenges with that. There's limited time for so many of the ministries. You all are doing direct care service work. That is, your full-time and more than full-time job, multiple jobs to do. And so taking time to post on Facebook or put together a direct marketing plan. Those are often the easiest things to get cut at the end of a busy day. Of course, we all have limited resources in the nonprofit space to do the things that we want to do and that we need to do in telling our stories. We also, I think, in the church world, have to strike a balance of building awareness and sharing our stories without, bragging about it or feeling like we're nagging people, like we're talking to them too much. How do we share stories if we're working in sensitive communities and populations? We don't want to be exploitative of vulnerable situations, and so there's a lot of things to juggle when we're thinking about sharing our stories. One of our Incubate partners, Reverend Elaine Sanford, with Her Faith Ministries, we were talking recently, and she says, "I've had my preacher head on. Now I need to put my marketing head on." So I think that, we will join her in that. We are probably all used to wearing many hats. So today we're going to put on our marketing hats and spend a little time talking about marketing and communications and sharing our stories. So in this webinar, what we're hoping to cover, first kind of starting with some elements of strategic planning and how we can start there for our organizations and ministries, as well as our communications plans moving forward. Talking a little bit about who, what, when, where, and why, some of those journalistic basics of storytelling and how we can implement those to organize our stories and to organize our communication plans. Then we'll also dig in to some templates and tips, so some tools and news that you can use to go back to your ministries and start putting some of these plans into action. And then, as we said, we'll take some time for Q&A throughout, and then also at the end. I will note, Ayana mentioned, the Incubate initiative, and a big part of what we do is providing resources for emerging ministries and projects related to health and social service. So we did have a couple of blogs that got into some of these details, so we'll be referencing those. And if you haven't seen those yet, we'll direct you back to our website at the end. So those can be hopefully a helpful companion piece to the materials that we'll go through in the webinar. So to start off with strategic planning, hopefully this is a process, in some form or fashion that you have embarked upon or have plans to embark upon for your ministry or congregation. And the tenets of strategic planning that apply to your organization, it's a natural next step to take that into your communications plans and strategies. So here's a chart that I thought was a good visual representation of one way to think about and approach strategic planning. At the top, you have your mission, which of course is your guiding light for your ministry, for your organization. The mission is the why. Why do you exist, and what do you want to accomplish? Underneath the mission are your objectives, and those are the where to, kind of where are you going? What do you want to achieve? And these are things, you may have heard of SMART goals. These are things that should be specific and measurable for your organization. And then the strategies underneath that are how you get there. They are the how. How will you reach these objectives? Underneath that are your tactics. And those are the what, the nuts and bolts, those concrete actions that you will take to operationalize your strategies. And then underneath that, the foundation are your key performance indicators, and a little acronym, KPIs, you may have heard. These are the how much, the metrics that you can use to measure success, to track your progress, and to see how you might need to shift and adapt those strategies in order to meet your objectives moving forward. So those are things at an organizational level, but then those are also natural fits into a communication strategy. So if you have an objective of building your database, building your audience of people who are engaging with you, your strategies will need to be built to accomplish that. Communication strategies to reach more people, to get your word out. And ways that you might measure that are how many people are opening your emails or how many people are seeing your Facebook posts. And we'll get into some of those details a little bit later. If you have an objective of raising a certain amount of money for your organization, then your strategies will need to be very aligned with that. And your tactics will as well. And your measurements, of course, will be how much progress you made towards that goal of the amount of money you wanted to raise. So your organizational strategies and your communication strategies should work hand in hand. Another way to look at it, I borrow from the advertising world. My first job out of college was working at an ad agency that handled a variety of clients. The brand client that I worked on was Clorox bleach, which is not particularly exciting consumer packaged good, but as a big company like that, they did a ton of market research, a ton of brand work. And so it was a really educational learning experience for me. Sometimes in the nonprofit space, language like brands and selling and those types of things feel a little uncomfortable and feel very corporate. But there are some good translations, I think, that we can apply to our work here. So a brand pyramid was something that we did in our advertising work that I started with back in the day. And it was really the thing that grounded our campaigns. And so you kind of moved from the bottom of the pyramid to the top with these different levels. And at the bottom were the functional benefits of your product or service or brand. For Clorox bleach, I'll just use that as an easy example. Those functional benefits were that it disinfected, that it killed germs, that it made your clothes clean, that it made your whites white. And so those were, really the functional items of that product or brand. As you move up the pyramid, you think of the emotional benefits of a product or brand. So, Clorox is about cleaning your house and cleaning clothes, but there are emotional benefits to that. You feel our primary audience, target audience were moms. And so you can say that, if your house is clean and your clothes are clean, you felt good about what you were providing for your family. Moving up the pyramid to brand personality, that is what represents, if your brand were a person, how would you describe them? What would those descriptors be? So for Clorox bleach, they wanted to be sort of warm and supportive and traditional, but not too traditional, still innovative. And so when we were crafting communications, those were the types of tone and feel that we were going for. And at the very top of the pyramid is your brand promise. So this is a very aspirational goal and message in your communications. So for the Clorox brand, this would be about having healthy, happy families, and that is the message that you wanted to convey in your communications. And so different pieces of your communications would be at different levels of this pyramid, but they would all work well together, very strategically aligned. And I think that those have very translatable elements in nonprofit communications as well. So some parallels might be here at the bottom of the pyramid, you have sort of the details of your programs and services, what it is that you do, sort of the details of your ministry. Maybe this is part of your elevator pitch, sort of that short description that you can share with people that are kind of the basics of your organization, your ministry. As you move up the pyramid, you get into more of the emotional aspects. And so this may be some testimonials, some success stories, some stories and messaging about the good work that is happening and that you're doing in your community. This may also be where your origin story fits in, your call, how you felt called to this ministry, and the work that you're doing because of that. So that may have a more of an emotional message. Moving up the pyramid, the parallel for brand personality, I think, are your organizational values and culture, those things that describe how you live out your work day to day for your organization and the behaviors that align with that. And then at the top of the pyramid is the mission and vision, that sort of guiding why that we talked about on the previous slide. So that is the aspiration, that's the goal that drives all of your work. So I think this parallel can be helpful so you can see the different levels of communications. And even if you have certain pieces of your plan that are working at certain levels in certain areas, they're all working together and everything ladders up to the promise, to the mission and vision. And then a third, more strategic level guiding principle for communications, also from my advertising experience, is a positioning statement. And so we would summarize it in a very descriptive way. For blank, blank is the blank that blanks. So that's the framework for a positioning statement. And it's filled in the advertising world for your audience. The sample brand or organization is the category provider, sort of what you are, what you do, that blanks, the unique selling proposition, what is special and unique about you. So going back to the Clorox bleach example, our positioning statement would have been something like, for busy moms, Clorox is the only bleach that gets your whites white or keeps your whites white. And so that would be, sort of the guiding, organizing summary of a campaign, and then the creative and the messaging would elaborate on that in a creative, compelling way. For our experience with NBA, one way to fill that out could be for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. The National Benevolent Association is the general ministry, or the Health and Social Services general ministry, that creates communities of compassion and care. That's our vision statement. And so that is an organizing principle and sort of the guiding light of our communications. That's our vision. And then our messaging, our storytelling that comes out of that works to explain that and lines up to that in the communications that we do. So those are sort of three higher level ways to think about how you might begin organizing your storytelling and your communications. And then we'll sort of move a little further in from there. But we can pause if there are any questions so far.